Chilo ganga tashi dele atene so sajo kawale yo ba yina yo ane kiwo de ya po yo ira chimo yo.
So first of all, Tashidele, greetings to all Dharma friends, wherever you are, whatever place. Geshe hopes that you are well and happy.
Ane ngaro su kanga segi dini ta kadi yina yo de ate ane nika le kiwo tene tatyo le tene deji pusu su bachi goba noji ane so su ya de ya ga ne te kanga so la pa le hares.
So first of all, it's important to understand that that wish, that all of us share that wish for both that temporary and ultimate happiness, that need that we have, this is something that if we endeavor correctly, we can definitely achieve.
O ta tele je kashi ga de yo ma je yo tene je pusu su bachi go yo ai ta je yo pusu su bachi go yo de go res te isa ngan zo ta je pusu su ba de ya ga ta le ka chi ni hares.
But we have to understand that we need to accumulate the causes. And if we want this kind of perfect result of lasting happiness, then we need to achieve many of the correct or different perfect causes. So that is what we are endeavoring in.
tende geba no yi te dane ta tyo ge de shi sana ma de posu su ba ji yong wa sha pa la te la ba che sana ma de ji pa sana ma de ne so mo bo ji yo chwa yo res.
However, as we strive to accumulate the causes of that ultimate happiness and so forth, we will come across difficulties, various obstacles, fears, and so forth that arise.
Tar ba che no ji pa yo zu le ro ba che to ke sha to ke ta la ane ke jo so chung wa ji le pa ge yi chi do re wa ten bo che na. Ta ni ka ka ne ta tyo ka ne ko yi nyo da yo zu le chwa ro ba che to ya ai ta ta te shan ro sa da le ka chen mo no le chen bo chi res.
However, if we think about these obstacles and these fears, there is a source of refuge from those. The source of refuge from those is the triple gem or the three jewels of Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. If one is able to bring forth faith in those, if one is able to place one's hope of protection in the three jewels, then they will be able to protect us from both temporary and ultimate difficulties and fears.
ta ke ju se chung wa chi le se ne ya sha san do wa ten bo si ya bo cha ba yi na na ko wa yong zu ge ji pa le to wa ne su se ge ji pa le to wa de di to to yo na chen di ge ba che la so ba ne ji pa la so ba to to ya ko phi mo gi ba chi re di ya le.
So it is said that if we take a refuge in the three jewels, in the complete three jewels, in a very stable way, then on the basis of this, one receives refuge or protection not only from the difficulties of the lower realms, but also refuge and protection from all of samsara in general. And if this refuge has the capacity to protect us from that, then certainly this refuge in the three jewels will protect us from the obstacles, the difficulties of this life.
Ta ten di ro pa ya bo she to ke ji wa ne to di shu lu do 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 sam ba ga wi ngo ne le te ne ya sha do lo ju do nyo le ta go ya ko to ne to yi.
So, understanding that they can help in this way, and then thinking I want to go into the direction of really developing this conviction in the three jewels, then we will engage in a little bit of contemplation or meditation on refuge.
Li du se rumba se jo ne rumba to bo te ta le le chi pa de ko yo res.
So let's just gradually put the body and the mind into the appropriate state, and let's begin by putting our body and mind into a relaxed feeling.
Cho me be se chi chi ni ma no ji pa yi lo so pa.
And think that any unwholesome or non-beneficial minds, they are like particles of water just absorbed by the sun.
Tuni nga ro za chi bo tsi de nga sa de tuni de so no to de ke sem chi do was.
So when we think of ourself, there's this I or this self, and along with that, there is the thinker that we call my mind.
Tuni ge nga sa nga yi sem sa de ta ki wo mi ne ji ge yo na ane sha do ya bo ji shu lo ko.
And when we talk about the I and we talk about my mind, it is seeking real happiness. If we want to be able to achieve that real happiness, we need to develop our practice of refuge.
기고야 보지 지그런 도와셔봐라든 로미아 보지는 로미아 보지는 도와라 로노아 강가 바꿔 그 여아이자 로노아 제바든 제시 샹도 살레를 같이 모시는
If we want to be able to achieve happiness, we need to travel the correct path to that happiness. If we want to be able to maintain that path to happiness, we need to stop or abandon mistaken or incorrect paths. And here we speak about refuge as the factor which allows us to abandon the mistaken paths in favor of the correct paths.
대요 조조로 뭐도 못들 샹도가 예대 아니 샤이 지주복은 그 뭐지 샤이 서초지
And the first part of thinking about this is correctly identifying the objects of refuge. And we understand that the objects of refuge is just not a single thing, but there are three objects of refuge.
샤 땜바 보이 비차네 아니 수지게죠 샤 드비다로 이비차네 아니 겐드게죠 아니 샤니 비차네 치게죠로 샤스토와 샤이테르게죠서
So the objects of refuge must be three in number: the teacher of the path, which is the Buddha jewel, the companions or helpers along the way, which is the Sangha jewel, the spiritual community, and then the actual refuge, which is the Dharma jewel, the teachings. We must go for refuge to all three of these.
니바텔라 아니 샹도야 보지 용도 마용 세대한테 아니 샹도 저 템보치도야 보지요나 아니 디고 샹도도야 저때 템보치면 되나 샹도도 아니 템보치면
The second is thinking about the cause. So if we think about the result of refuge, we understand if they have the causes in place, we will be able to have the result of that stable refuge. But if we have incomplete or we don't have those causes, we will not be able to have the result of stable refuge.
투모이 샹도 세나 니티롱자 조지세마 관계 투모이 샹도 저때라 연니렌데스 니바도 대와니
When we speak about the common refuge, and here it's the common refuge in terms of the refuge common to the Shravakas, to the hearers, common to the Pratyeka Buddhas, the solitary realizers, as well as common to the Bodhisattvas, we speak of this as the common refuge, which has two causes: faith and fear.
시르코와 요ዙ큰 묘다 니바 간디 지 조스 지하고 근데 아니 제가 년수서 년츠 아니 시워 때는 좀 만들어 메이나요 아니 뭐도 너니 시워 통하디 와스
So we can think about this fear in a general way in terms of a fear of cyclic existence or samsara in general. We can also think more specifically of the fears of the three lower realms, the three unfortunate states. Then we can also develop a fear of all the difficulties within samsara of those beings we can see directly, ourselves, human beings, as well as the animals and so forth.
미스 통대학 멋지바이나요 던도지바이나요 가시 할레베트니 무세세나 문데 제 차송을 땅에 집테는 데데가야 가시 기고치는 데데가야 돼요 조조 잘라되는 슈마르스
And if we look at the human and animal realms, we can see that there are beings in those realms who their entire life is a troublesome, a going from difficulty to difficulty, whereas there are others who are experience a relative more degree of happiness. And so this, of course, depends upon causes.
어떤 가로 수이나요 다디 니까지일도 어떤 지가 강에 침보든 문제 되는 이나요 매박 땡보데 저야 말아왔어
And we ourselves, at the moment, we might not be in a situation of particularly strong difficulties, but we also understand that our position of having relatively few difficulties is something that is only temporary, right? It is not lasting.
소싱이니라 소솔했더니 강에 차송하를 도와시키러 봐 땡보지를 보게 대마잖아 다 들리라 지 최소나 다 하려야 그다 치부지래 손을 돈에 가제다도 니바 뭐다 로바시아 토끼가 다 들리 가르세카 어디 니바야 벌써 또 그야
And then from our side, thinking about this situation and understanding that instability, then we should bring forth a fear which compels us to think, I need some source of help. I should rely upon a correct source of help in this situation.
야보 소노토나 든진 지바티가 소소라 로바치가 말도 디가 소소라 네바시가 말했어.
And actually, this fear is an assisting factor in our practice of refuge, right? This fear is not something heavy that will harm us here.
가시 디가 세플 베스 베게 강연다고 생각하는데 든디가 초와 기보메가 초와 슈마이나요. 디르 많이 바텔더니 대화 세야지. 레응이 와이사 다 디가 베게 초와데 저와도네 한레베 초와 야보시 슈티노 티그레스.
And so, as we cultivate faith and fear in the first stage, is thinking about the fears of samsara may seem something that is like problematic, that makes us unhappy. But after we develop that, then the next step is to develop faith. And as we switch from fear to faith, then faith is a more positive aspect in the mind that will be lifting.
시 주주가 차에 따와 있는 아니 고아시 이거다. 아니 저 노바리 주스 소소가 그게 여자 따와 있는 할래 자칭 못 디사본다고 뉴아스.
When we think about the faults of samsara, in particular the faults of the 6 different types of beings within samsara, if we can understand that from our perspective, then we see that the problem of samsara is something that is both deep and vast.
이나용 던디그 지바 용주래 아니 조바 조바시에 도케 아니 이 던디그 예데데 견주설어요 아이다 아니 대화시에서야 주듯이 빠지게 돼.
However, we understand that in terms of all of those difficulties and fears, there are objects of refuge, of protection, which can help to liberate us from all of that fears. And these are the 3 jewels of Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. We comprehend that they can protect us from this situation and give rise to a mind of faith.
던디에 대템에 돈이 가비 뭐니 견주설라 대화야.
So then, being mindful of the 3 jewels, bringing them into mind in a happy way, go for refuge to the 3 jewels, Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha.
진님보 때라 때네 다 다네즈디 자샤 자톰바다 이치도 레와 오다 견주서 거의 지바 요zul을 줘이 안에 들어가 시도고 요아서 디쇼란다네 테르샤스포 이 somba 세치다데 샤스노 스마드레스.
So then, Geshe said, the third point, the way of going for refuge, we have a thought about these 3 objects of refuge. They definitely 100% are able to protect me from all of these problems within samsara. So I will bring forth complete faith and confidence in them. In this way, meditate. This is the way of going for refuge.
다 이와샹디 라자텔라 아니 파과야그 라자지 치드야그 라자 관이야 유아스 라자 라자.
So then the next one is the advice or the trainings of going for refuge. And the trainings of going for refuge regard what to take up and what to abandon.
다 견주서 샹디 라자 쪼데 달리 계저 뭐시 뭐가 라자 쪼데 아니 생제 슬리나 있다 저 보야 다 라자 뭐니 라자 니보데 데레.
So there are different trainings in refuge, but if we were to speak of the very essence of that training, it could be summed up in this idea of non-harmfulness, ahimsa, not harming any being whatsoever, abandoning harm to any being whatsoever.
뭔가 던도이나요 스데 스드 슬리나요 다 차와 가제트도 뉴르도 차와 갈레 페트 자자 자통아 차츠모 보통서 이 소마.
So bring forth a thought that thinks, as much as possible, I will reduce any harm that I'm bringing forth to any being, human, animal, and so forth. Eventually, I will abandon even the slightest harm, abandon harm completely.
Tene zhimba nga wate shandu pe de la, o ta shasandu yu pe de la, le nga ba kandi ji yiba yina yu nyu zhindu le koro sepa nyo, ka chi ru chi ri.
And so then when we speak about the next point, which is the benefits of refuge, one of the benefits of going for refuge is that one decreases one's engagement with unwholesome or negative karma.
Senji te kanga lolo shi tu tsawan da wata ne domba mo yo re, domba kanga lolo te yapu cha to ya.
When we speak of positive mental qualities, we understand that the basis of those positive mental qualities is the practice of vows or precepts, and refuge is the foundation through which we can receive all of the vows and precepts.
Ngen di je nga yo ba kanga lolo pa me ba cha ya. Ngen su sa ge je, nga yo ba je ba me wa cha ya.
It is also said that the practice of refuge helps us to clear away, to purify any causes of being reborn in the three unfortunate realms.
Tene tani ziti shandu la ja nyo le ya po che, shandu nyo le ya po che na, shima yi na yo tene ngen di je, ane yo ma to ya, kwa ya. Ngen di je ma sa ba, go ba ri na yo.
And by following the advice or the training of refuge, one naturally is hindered, is stopped from in the future accumulating causes to go to the unfortunate realms.
Tawa yi na re, ane shonju je se yi na re, sunji je gomba la, ane nyo wa.
Through refuge, one becomes closer to all of these transcendental goals of liberation, the development of bodhicitta, Buddhahood, and so forth.
O ta tandi ge pe mo mo yo ne ta tani ziti shandu lo shu tu nyo le ya ba. De mo che yi so ba ga wi ngo.
So, comprehending these benefits, then meditate that with a happy mind, I will definitely study and practice this refuge.
Chupa sha si bi yi chi, se na ken jo se de le, ane ta tu ge sha re, ka re se na sha si bi yi chi, ane se de, ken jo se de le tsu ge du, ane yen da le tsu ge me a yi za, ta tu ge sha, mi ne de re de, oops.
The next point, the final of the 6 points regarding refuge, is the worthiness of the objects of refuge. The worthiness of the objects of refuge are something that distinguish the three jewels from other objects of refuge. Other refuges cannot be final or ultimate objects of refuge, but these characteristics of worthiness, they distinguish the three jewels as powerful ultimate objects of refuge.
Wi chi tongbo de la, ken jo sembo de nyo ru, ane nji pa yon zu li koro su to ca wa yi za, nye di nye mu bi nji pa, ane shi zho ge nji pa yon zu li to ca wa yi za, ane nji pa ta da li to wa de re de.
So, the first of the characteristics of worthiness of the three jewels of Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha regards them being free from all fear. Because the three jewels are free from all fear, which means both the afflictive and knowledge obscurations, they can guide beings to a state completely beyond fear.
Ke cho se tsu wa chi wa na, ane ye le tu ji chi mo nye ri me pa nju pa xia de, wu de.
When we think about three jewels together, we also understand that the three jewels have an unbiased compassion for all beings, not holding some close and others far.
Te se tsu wa chi wa na, ane ye nji pa ni ka ge nji pa, ta de nji pa yon zu le zho yi ta le ke pa de wu yon to wa.
And in addition to that, these three jewels, they are skilled in the various methods to help to protect, to free sentient beings from both temporary and ultimate fears or problems.
Tndi ji yi za, ane ken jo sembo de, xia se gi pa yi za, ta xia yon no ne, ta xia yon chu ta chi pa de re de.
Therefore, because they possess these three characteristics of worthiness, the three jewels are worthy, or the ultimate, the supreme source of refuge.
Wa ta ne zi zhu ge tu ne xian du, ane nyo le ya pa, che shu pa de ka wa zong bo yi so pa.
So think on the basis of these brief 6 points, I am very fortunate to be able to contemplate and practice refuge in the 3 jewels. So that was Geshe-la's brief presentation of that glance meditation about refuge. So in the previous video, Geshe-la completed the way to take the essence of one's precious human life, and now we are within the points of the Lam Rim, the stages of the path, common to beings of a lesser capacity. And so all of these are related to taking the essence of our human life, and one of the ways to take that essence of our precious human life is through this practice. So thank you very much. With a happy, joyful mind, please engage in your own study and practice.